Did you know that there are over 30 cultural holidays in December? We're going to talk about some of them today. Honestly, I don't feel qualified to teach about most of these holidays. Many of them I had never even heard of before doing research for this video. I hope that you are educationally entertained. So, let's take a stroll together through the month of December. According to the UUA website, Chalica is a week-long celebration of the Unitarian Universalist principles. The holiday first emerged in 2005 out of a wish to have a holiday organized around Unitarian Universalist values. Chalica begins on the first Monday in December and lasts 7 days. Each day a chalice is lit and the day is spent reflecting on the meaning of that day's principle and doing a good deed that honors that principle. Not all Unitarian Universalists celebrate Chalica, but it has a growing following. The 4 Sundays prior to Christmas, some Christians celebrate Advent. While not necessarily traditional practice, a family that I lived with celebrated Advent in a very interesting way. It was the biggest event that the family put on. Starting the night of Thanksgiving, we would all go and dig out all of the Christmas decorations. Some years there would be a week to get things done, but most years there were only 2.5 days to get everything up. This isn't your normal tree and light setup. They owned over 100 nativity sets. Some as simple as an angel with the baby Jesus, and some so complex they took 45 minutes to assemble. There were 2 trees, a whole Dickens village. Lights for the tree, lights for the porch, lights for the roof. Characters and figurines everywhere. There was not a surface untouched by Christmas spirit. Then that first Sunday would hit and it was non-stop movement all day. The family themselves went to church for the main meeting, but oftentimes classes were skipped in order to have time for preparation. Dinner was a raclette feast. There would be somewhere between 18 and 25 people at each dinner. The main family, and then a different group invited to attend for each week. Steak, schnitzel, potatoes, bread, bacon, cheese, meatballs, mushrooms, broccoli, etc. Everyone would stuff themselves and talk through dinner. Once everyone was full, they would gather in the family room in a large circle and the Advent night would officially begin. Yeah, the dinner was just a really fancy dinner. The real event was just beginning. As everyone settled in, a candle on the Advent wreath would be lit. 4 candles in all. Each Sunday, another candle lit in conjunction. At the end of the night, the lit candles would be extinguished, except for the last night, where the candles are supposed to burn through the night, though we never lit them because of fire hazard. Everyone would have the chance to tell a story or pick a song. If a song was picked, there were 3 options. You could sing it alone, you could play it on an instrument, or the entire group could sing the carol. After the first person has gone, then they get to pick who goes next. Once everyone has had a chance to tell a story or pick a song, the group would sing through 3 to 6 verses of Silent Night, and then the pyrotechnics would begin. Happens every year. You paying attention? hands get absolutely covered in orange oil. You'd be surprised how wet these get when you squeeze them. People would be busy peeling the oranges, so that at the end of the singing and stories and whatnot, there was just a big box of orange peels ready for everyone to play with fire. Ooh, that one was fun. The trick is to make a smiley face. You squeeze it in half and in half at the same time. And then you just work the smiley face over it until you've released as much of the oils as you can. The feast of St. Nicholas is celebrated in parts of Europe on December 6th. The previous evening is Krampus Nacht, where the wicked hairy devil, Krampus, appears on the street, sometimes with St. Nicholas, sometimes alone, handing out coal and rootin bundles, which are bundles of birch twigs. Krampus is in charge of the bad children, while St. Nicholas only concerns himself with the good children, dispensing gifts. On December 8th, Bodhi Day commemorates the day that the historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, experienced enlightenment. Siddhartha had recently forsaken years of extreme aesthetic practices and resolved to sit under a Bodhi tree and simply meditate until he found the root of all suffering and how to liberate oneself from it. In the words of Siddhartha Gautama, "My heart, thus knowing, thus seeing, was released from the fermentation of sensuality, released from the fermentation of becoming, released from the fermentation of ignorance. With release, there was the knowledge, released. I discerned that birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world." Celebrated on the 12th of December throughout the Americas, the Festival of Our Lady Guadalupe is explained as the Mexican version of the Virgin Mary, who is the patron saint of Mexico. In 1531, during an extremely cold winter, a 57-year-old Aztec Indian named Juan Diego encountered a miracle on his way to morning mass just outside of Mexico City. First, he heard music playing on Tepeyac Hill. Then he heard the voice of a woman calling his name. He decided to climb the hill and investigate. On top of the hill, he encountered a woman who appeared to be one of his fellow Aztec Indians. However, she told him that she was the Virgin Mary, and then she asked him to ask the Bishop of Mexico City to build a church on that hill to help convert the nation to Catholicism. When he spoke to the bishop, he didn't believe his story at all. Juan returned to the hill and told the Virgin Mary of the bishop's disbelief. She told him to go and relay the same message. After the second visit with the bishop, he demanded proof that the woman was indeed the Virgin Mary. One returned to the hill again and explained what the bishop had said. Suddenly, roses grew up from the snow-covered ground. One gathered the roses and took them to the bishop. When he opened his cloak to release the roses, the image of the Virgin Mary had been imprinted on his cloak, and the bishop immediately believed his story and started construction of the church. Nowadays, there are processions and feasts to celebrate this day. On December 13th, the Swedish St. Lucia Day is celebrated. St. Lucy was a 3rd century martyr under the Diocletianic persecution, the most severe persecution of Christians in the Roman Empire. According to legend, she brought food and aid to the Christians who were hiding in the catacombs, using a candlelit wreath to light her way and leave her hands free to carry as much food as possible. Once coinciding with the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, her feast day was a festival of light, closely mimicking the same celebration that pagans had honored for centuries before, the light returning after the longest night. Saturnalia is an ancient Roman festival honoring the god Saturn. Festivities start on December 17th and go till the 23rd. The holiday was celebrated with a sacrifice at the Temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum, and a public banquet followed by private gift-giving, continual partying, and a carnival atmosphere that overturned Roman social norms. Can anyone tell that this snippet came directly from Wikipedia? The Neoplatonist philosopher Porphyry interpreted the freedom associated with Saturnalia as symbolizing the freeing of souls into immortality. It's noted that the festivities of Saturnalia is believed to have influenced several Christian holidays, including Christmas. The Hindu festival Pancha Ganapati, sorry for my pronunciation of any of these by the way, is a modern winter holiday full of family-centered celebration that runs from December 21st to the 25th. During this time, the Hindus worship Lord Ganesha, an elephant-headed lord of culture and new beginnings. As a side note, the Hindus believe that even harsh karma, when faced in wisdom, can be the greatest catalyst for spiritual growth. And when something happens that seems unfortunate or unjust, it's not the god's punishment, but a result of one's own actions in the past. Soyal is the winter solstice ceremony of the Zuni and Hopi Native Americans. Both tribes lived near the Four Corners region of the United States. As with Yule, St. Lucia's Day, and many other cultural holidays around this time of year, it was a celebration of light. A ceremony would be conducted in order to welcome the sun back from its long winter slumber. It was the New Year celebration for these natives. The Anglo-Saxon pagans, mostly among the Germanic peoples, celebrated Modranicht, or Mother's Night. It's speculated, though, that this may have been misinterpreted and is actually Goddess Night, as many depictions of the triple goddess were found in conjunction with this holiday. Not much information remains about this holiday, but it is believed that celebrations were probably close to those of other pagan celebrations of the solstice. The old Slavic pagan celebration of the sun returning was Koliada. The Persian pagans celebrated Yalda, and Dongzhi is an East Asian solstice festival celebrated by the Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans. Many of their practices mirror ancient pagan beliefs and focus on the days getting longer. Who knew that the solstice was such an important time all over the world? Many Yuletide traditions were adopted by the Christians and used in their Christmas celebrations. These include things like the Yule log, Christmas tree, caroling, Christmas feasting, particularly a Yule hog or a Christmas ham, mistletoe, wreaths, fruitcake, magical gift givers, etc. All of these practices were taken from ancient pagan celebration and rituals. In fact, most Christian holidays are taken in one way or another from pagan tradition. Yule itself was a celebration of many things. The sun returning, the old god being reborn as the goddess, family, etc. Originally, it was celebrated for 12 days, and the Yule log had to remain lit to lead the sun back from the dark. Modernly, it's generally only celebrated on the solstice. The 8-day Jewish festival of lights, Hanukkah, commemorates the rededication of the Second Temple in Jerusalem during the 2nd century BC. It is celebrated from December 22nd to December 30th. According to History.com, the evidence that inspired the Hanukkah holiday took place during a particularly turbulent phase of Jewish history. Around 200 BC, Judea, also known as the Land of Israel, came under the control of Antiochus III, the Seleucid king of Syria, who allowed the Jews who lived there to continue practicing their religion. His son, Antiochus IV, Epiphanes, proved less benevolent. Ancient sources recount that he outlawed the Jewish religion and ordered the Jews to worship Greek gods. In 106 BC, his soldiers descended upon Jerusalem, massacring thousands of people and desecrating the city's holy Second Temple by erecting an altar to Zeus and sacrificing pigs within its sacred walls. Led by the Jewish priest Matthias and his 5 sons, a large-scale rebellion broke out against Antiochus and the Seleucid monarchy. When Matthias died in 166 BC, his son Judah, known as Judah Maccabi, the Hammer, took the helm. Within 2 years, the Jews had successfully driven the Syrians out of Jerusalem, relying largely on guerrilla warfare tactics. Judah called on his followers to cleanse the Second Temple, rebuild its altar, and light its menorah, the gold candelabrum whose 7 branches represented knowledge and creation, and were meant to be kept burning every night. There's so much more surrounding Hanukkah that I just don't have time to talk about today. So please, go do some research on your own if you'd like to know more about it. In some European countries, particularly Germany, gift-giving is done on the night of the 24th. In older times, the adults would decorate the Christmas tree, light the tree's candles, and let the children in for a night of celebration and gifts. The family I mentioned earlier that celebrated Advent practiced this tradition. The children would go for a walk, and when they returned, Santa would have come and gone. The tree would be crowded with gifts, the couch lined with everyone's stockings. Then they would spend the night watching Christmas movies together. In the morning, things were not as hectic. They would have a large Christmas breakfast with sausages and fresh orange juice, and they would take all the cheese that had been left over from Advent, extras frozen each week and saved for Christmas dinner, and make the most interesting fondue for dinner that I have ever experienced. There would sometimes be 8 or 9 different cheeses in the fondue pot. They also had a special tradition where the mom would drop in a whole garlic clove. The person who found it would get a special gift, usually something with a lot of chocolate, like a giant Toblerone. Now, most Christians give their gifts on Christmas Day. Some go to church, some don't. It just depends on the particular Christian sect and personal traditions. Honestly, I don't think that I need to spend much time talking about Christmas because, to me, it's a holiday full of stolen traditions, many of which we've already discussed. Historically, it isn't even supposed to be the actual day of Christ's supposed birth. It was celebrated on this day in order to blend in with pagan celebrations, so Christians could avoid the persecution that practicing their religion openly would bring. And now, many Christians persecute and shun those that celebrate religions that are so much older than theirs. I don't say any of this with intended offense, just frustration that those that lived historically with such violent persecution wouldn't give more reverence to other religious beliefs. Also, I'm not talking about all Christians, just specifically the ones who believe that there is a war on Christmas. Happy holidays, motherfuckers.
Also on December 26th, Newton's birthday is a non-secular alternative celebration of Christmas, referred to as Newtonmas or Krampus, as a nod towards Newton's theory of reality. Reasons, greetings.
Kwanzaa is a week-long celebration held in the Americas to honor African heritage. It's observed from December 26th to January 1st, with gift-giving and a feast. Kwanzaa has 7 core principles and was created by Maulana Karinga in 1966. The principles include unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. Each night, a new candle is lit and another principle is observed, leading to the feast.
On the last day of the Gregorian calendar, many countries celebrate New Year's Eve. Many celebrations start early on the 31st and continue late into the night on January 1st. Watch Night, or St. Sylvester's Day in many countries, is also celebrated on New Year's Eve. It's a time for many Christians to review their year and make confession and repent in order to be purified for the new year. The Scottish New Year celebration Hogmanay is believed to be derived from Norse and Gaelic observances. Customs vary throughout Scotland and usually include gift-giving and visiting friends and neighbors. The most widespread national custom is the practice of first footing, which starts immediately after midnight. This involves being the first person to cross the threshold of a friend or neighbor, and often involves gift-giving, such as salt, coal, shortbread, whiskey, and black bun, which is a rich fruitcake, I guess? I haven't looked it up. Black bun. Intended to bring different kinds of luck to the householder. Food and drink are then given to the guests. Think along the lines of "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" song, but for New Year's, and everyone is giving everyone else gifts, not just taking figgy pudding and wassail. Equality, yo.
Omisoka is a Japanese spiritual event that takes place on December 31st. At midnight, Japanese people visit Shinto shrines. Temples ring a large cast iron bell to signify the 108 earthly wants that created human suffering. Almost every culture has some sort of importance surrounding the solstice. I've only scratched the surface of the cultural holidays in December. If you want to learn more about any of these celebrations, I encourage you to do your own research. There's a lot of information out there. And I'm only one person with limited resources trying to bring culture to a time of year that has become very whitewashed and Christianized. I hope you all have an amazing holiday season. Be safe.